All right, so for this equation, notice it's a little bit more challenging, right? They give us the center and they give us a point that it passes through, but they don't give us the radius. So if we kind of think about this, we have our point -5, 3, which is our center. That's perfect. We have our h and our k. So let me go ahead and label that. All right, this is my h, this is my k, but I don't have the radius. So if the circle passes through this point, then that means that the distance between the center and that point is going to be the radius. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the distance formula to find the distance between those 2 points. So my distance formula is going to tell me what the radius is. So square root of, let's go ahead and label these. So this is my x1, this is y1, and then I'll label this x2, y2. And let's go ahead and plug it all in. So x2 minus my x1 squared plus y2 minus my y1 squared. All right, this is going to give me the two negatives are going to become positive. So -1 plus 5 is 4. And then 4 minus 3, that's just 1. So then we're going to get the square root of 4 squared, that's 16, plus 1 squared, that's just 1. And then I'm going to get 16 plus 1, which gives me 17. All right, perfect. So this is the distance between those 2 points, which is also going to give me the radius. Okay, and it's okay that the radius is in a square root form, because when we plug it into the formula, the square root is going to disappear. So let's go ahead and plug that into our formula, our formula for circles, right? We know the formula is x minus my center squared plus y minus my center squared equals to the radius squared. So we know the center. My center point is -5 and 3, so this will become +5 and then 3, right? It's always the opposite sign. My radius is the square root of 17. Now this is what I'm talking about. It's okay to leave it as a square root because the squared and the square root are just going to cancel out, and you're going to end up with just 17. So now our equation is really nice. So this one's really nice because we can see that we immediately see the center, right? We get given the center point, which is always really nice, 0, 4, but we're also given a radius. Now, the radius here we can easily count because the radius is always going to be, we can always count vertically and horizontally on an axis, right? So if you notice the distance here is going to be 3 for that radius. So we're done, right? Our center here is going to be the point 0, 4. And then our radius is just going to be 3. So we just have to plug that into my formula. So x minus 0 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals to 3 squared. Just plugged it into my formula for a circle. Anything minus 0 is just itself, so this will just become x squared. Actually, we can just leave it as just x squared. No parentheses. X squared plus y minus 4 squared, and then equals 3 squared is 9. And we are all done. All right, in example number 4, still pretty straightforward question because it gives us the center and it gives us the radius, so that's pretty nice. All we got to do is just plug it in. So this won't take too long. We just got to plug it in. X minus 6 squared plus y minus 1 squared, and that's going to equal to the square root of 11 squared. So we got to simplify this, so there's not really much to simplify. So x minus 7 squared is just x minus 7, y minus 1, and then the square root and the squared are going to cancel out, so we're just left with 11. and we're all done. Okay, so this one is probably one of the more trickier problems. So here it wants you to find the equation of a circle, but it doesn't give you the center. It only gives you the endpoints of the diameter of a circle. So let's kind of think about this really quick. Let's draw a quick sketch of where these points are on our axis. So -3, 1, let's just say is right there, -9 and 7. So -3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then down 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it'll be -9 and 7 is right around here. So what's going on is these are the endpoints of the diameter of the circle, right? So this is a diameter. So let's draw a straight line going straight through these 2 points. I'm going to try it again. Let's make this officially straight. There we go. And then we know that we're going to have a circle that's going to go around this. Okay, maybe that doesn't look like a circle, but okay, I can't really draw a perfect circle. Okay, close enough, right? Something like that. So so we know a couple things. First thing is we know that the center is going to be right at the middle. It's going to be right in the middle of that. Second thing we know is that the radius is just half of the diameter. So there's a couple things we need to do. We need to find the distance of the diameter and take half of it to find the radius. And then we need to find the midpoint to find the center. Okay, so there's 2 things we're going to do. Let me erase most of that. I'm going to scoot this over so we have a little bit more space. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the radius. So just like I said, we're going to find the distance of the diameter, and we're going to cut it in half to find the radius. So let's find the distance of the diameter. Let's do this in black. So the distance of my diameter, so my diameter is going to be, the distance of my diameter is going to be equal to the square root of, let's go ahead and label these. So I've got x1, y1, and then this one will be x2, y2. So we've got, let's do our x's first, so -9 minus -3 squared, then plus, let's deal with the y's now, -7 minus 1 squared equals, well, let's see, we'll see what it equals. Actually, we'll bring it straight down. So let's see here, -9 minus 3, that's the same thing as -9 plus 3. So that'll end up giving me, what is that, 6? So I get -6 squared plus -7 minus 1, that's -8 squared. -6 squared is 36. -8 squared is 64. Okay, this is pretty nice. 36 plus 64, that's 100. And then the square root of 100 is 10. Oh, that's really nice. Won't always work out this nicely, but I'm glad it did in this case. All right, so our diameter is 10, which means, right, if the entire diameter is 10, right, if this entire thing here is 10, then that means the radius has got to be equal to 5, right? That means the radius is just half of that. It's 5. So we have our radius. Done. Now what we need to do is we need to find the center. So the way we're going to find the center is the center we know is going to be halfway. So we're going to use the midpoint formula. So we're going to use the midpoint to find the center. All right, so use the midpoint to find the center. Okay, so midpoint formula, it's not too bad. We just add them. We add up the x and the y values and just divide them by 2. So let's take my x values. My x values are going to be -3 right? We've got -3 and -9. For my y values, I've got 1 and -7, and all I'm going to do is add those guys together. That's it. So -3 plus -9, that's -12. Divide that by 2. 1 minus 7, that is -6. Divide that by 2. So I end up with -6 and -3. And that should be the center. And let's just double check. Let's make sure this at least looks somewhat accurate, because it's easy to make mistakes. So let's see, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, that's pretty good x value. It's almost exactly where I put it. And then down 3. And then from there down 1, 2, 3. Hey, pretty good, right? That looks perfect. So we know that's accurate. So I want to find the equation. All right, I want to find the equation. So my last step is just plug it into the formula, right? Which is x, right, -6, which will end up as +6. Then y minus -3, which will just end up as +3. And then equals 5 squared. 5 squared is just 25. And we are all done here. All right, so in this one, we wanted to determine the equation of the graph that's given below. So, let's see here. We're not given a radius. We have the center, but no radius, huh? And we can't really count the radius because if I try to count, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. So we don't know exactly what that little bit is. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to have to use the distance formula to find the distance between those 2 points. So our points are 3, 3, and 6, 6, right? Let me erase it just in case. Yep, and 6, 6. So 3, 3, and 6, 6. So we've got 3, 3, and then we've got 6, 6. Okay. So doesn't really matter how you do this. Does not really matter how you label these. Whoops, that should be y1. x2, y2. Let's just punch this into the distance formula. Distance formula is equal to the square root of my x2 minus x1 squared plus my y2 minus my y1 squared. And again, the order doesn't really matter. As long as you're consistent with it, then you'll be fine, right? This is my x2, and then this is my, well, let me do it in their respective colors. This is x2. This one's x1, right? This is my y2, and then this one's my y1, right? Notice how it's consistent, 2, 1, 2, 1. So as long as you are consistent, then your answers will come out perfectly every time. So let's go ahead and subtract this out. 6 minus 3, that's 3 squared, plus 6 minus 3 again, that's 3 squared. Let's go ahead and simplify this. 3 squared is 9. 3 squared is 9. Together, that gives me 18. Okay, so I told you typically you could just leave it as a square root of 18. This can simplify. This can simplify to 3 radical 2. Although you'll be okay if you leave it as 18. And actually, I'm actually going to recommend you just leave it as a square root of 18. But I always like to go back to things we've done before, just to kind of make those connections. But for this part, we're good. So all we have to do now is just plug it into the formula. So my formula is, my center is 3, 3. So all I got to do is plug it into my formula. So x minus 3 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals to the square root of 18 squared. But like I said, the squared and the square root are going to cancel out. So I'm just going to be left with 18. So we get x minus 3 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 18. All right, so pretty straightforward lesson here, nothing too tricky. That one tricky problem you have where you have to find the midpoint first, that's going to be the only tricky one, but besides that, everything should be pretty straightforward. So good luck with all the material this week. Try to get it done as soon as you can. That way you're free to kind of enjoy your time. So keep being healthy and keep being safe, everybody.